So welcome back to Above the Noise, Faith, Race, and Reconciliation. My guest today is Miss Clarine Cave from Partners That Care International on the island of Barbados. Looking forward to our conversation together, and I know you're going to enjoy it through the work that she and her team are doing there. So, Clarine, welcome to Above the Noise.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Introduce yourself to our guests. Tell them who you are, where you live, a little bit about you and your family.
Well, like said, my name is Clarine or Clarine Cave. A lot of Americans call me Clarine because it's
Okay.
the short A and not Clarine with the long A. So,
Which do you
but
prefer?
it doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
I can go back to my bedroom and call you Clarine if you want me
Right.
to.
So Clarine is good.
Okay,
Clarine is
good.
fine. I am a mother of five. I've been married for December coming will be 30 years.
Wow.
And we live here on the island of Barbados. Beautiful Barbados. Well, it's raining outside now, but it's usually sunny all year round. Um, I am a very active and avid runner. I love sports and specifically athletics. And I love the Lord, my faith journey. I grew up in church. I like to tell people my story of being at church more often as a child than I thought I should be. Um, but it wasn't one specific church. So my story goes back. I was born by a Dominican parent. My mom's from Dominica. Most of my siblings, not most, all of my siblings are from Dominica. So when my mom came here and she had me, I'm born to a Dominican mom and a Barbadian dad. So I got christened in the Anglican Church at St. Michael's Cathedral. I then, in my growing up, I started going to the Catholic Church because my mom was Catholic. And I started doing First Communion classes. There's confirmation and First Communion. So I did First Communion classes on Saturdays. And then my aunt moved here from the UK, and I was living with her and my grandmother. And in living with them, she went to church at the Adventist church. And therefore, I used to go to church on Saturday at the Adventist church and then on Sunday at the Catholic church until I decided, okay, I wanted to make a decision for the Lord when I was about 11 and I got baptized into the Adventist church. I spent most of my teenage years within the Adventist church. And again, we walk that little rebellious streak in your teenage years. You want to do as you want to do. And that led me then to my husband, who him and I then got baptized into the Wesleyan church. And so we've been on this journey, but my desire and my hunger has always been for the things of God. And I think that started to open up when I started doing those First Communion classes within the Catholic Church. And it started to grow as I started to read the quarterly and so forth as a young child coming up in the Adventist Church. But it always piqued my interest to want to know more about God. Okay, so my journey then developed a thirst or a hunger for the things of God. And I started going um, to the Adventist church on Saturdays and Catholic church on Sundays. And I've always had this appetite to want to know more. And my journey then brought me to where I am now, just seeking out the things of God. You know, I love the Lord with all my heart. I just want to do what He wants me to do. And so my journey has been that of coming through the different phases or the different churches. So I'm well churched. Going through the different churches and so forth. And I really appreciate the journey that I've been on.
So you got through the church. You got through the church part to actually coming to the point of wanting to develop your relationship with God and live a life He
Correct.
wants you to live, which are not always the same thing. That's why I made that distinction.
Exactly. It's
Sometimes you
not.
can
And
do the
it's
church thing and never really find a relationship with God. Once you find a relationship with God, it changes everything. So let's talk about your professional journey. Were you always in nonprofit work, or where did you start out?
Um, my background initially was sports. I was a professional athlete, one of Barbados' first professional athletes, if you want to put it that way. I was in that grouping that started the Barbados Sports Program back in 1991. And I was a distance athlete and a thrower. I threw javelin, um, representing the Barbados Defense Force as well as my country. Um, and that was where my professional journey started. I was 19 at the time. Um, Went on from there to do administration. Well, I became a full time soldier after the sports program leg was almost coming to an end because I did not pursue an athletic scholarship for varying reasons. I wanted to stay here, and in doing so, joined the army full time. In doing that, I then realized that this is good for the discipline and all that. So I broke my contract 5 years after I enlisted. I broke my contract and I pursued then a career in administration. That started within the army, but I continued that pursuit until the desire within me to help people started to grow more. There was this always this niggling that I could help. If I can help people, what would I do? What would I do? And it is in those years, those initial years, that I thought, okay, I'll start studying psychology. I studied that. And then I went on to do my associate degree in psychology. I did, well, that was at Barbados Community College. And then I did some certification courses. I did um, guidance and counseling, gender and development studies. I also did certification in international health. So this took me down the path of going into HIV and AIDS.
Mhm.
And that's where I started to look at doing programming work. I was part of a team that we wrote proposals for funding and stuff like that. And we implemented programs within the community, more based towards sensitization of the HIV AIDS at the time. The company had a charity leg of it, and I was um, given the task of managing the charity. And that's how my desire then for charity work started to grow because I thought of myself then being able to facilitate um, what I wanted to do, which was my love for the performing arts and helping others because I did not want to be a psychologist sitting behind a desk and seeing people every day. I wanted to be the boots on the ground. I
Okay.
did not want to be a, as much as I'm a qualified guidance counselor, I did not want to be a guidance counselor sitting behind a desk every day just seeing, people or seeing students. So I wanted to marry my two loves, which was my love for the performing arts and my love for psychology. And that led me then to a space of wanting to do it for those who more than likely were not going to be able to afford to pay for it.
So out of that desire, then, is that what led you to start Partners That Care? How did you get to the point where you say, I want to form this organization, and who was going to be your target audience, and why did you do that?
Well, my husband and I, we have always, again, because I guess together we collectively did a lot of helping in the community. We would give out food hampers to, random families along the way. We would do things like adopt a children's home or a senior citizens home, and we would go down and cut the grass and paint the building and do stuff like that. And I realized that we both like doing these things for our community. Um, just lift the morale and the spirits of people. And after the company I was working for under the HIV/AIDS banner, After that company closed, I wanted to do something, and no matter how many applications I wrote, there was nothing coming back. There was just nothing happening. And your tendency is to say, okay, God, so everybody who was working with me seems to have gone back out to work. What's going on? Why can't I, get employed? And that happened for about a year and a half after, the company closed. And again, a God idea. It wasn't my idea. I'd like to take credit for it. No, I wouldn't. God impressed upon me to start Partners at Care International. And the name is an interesting thing because my sister, who lives in New York, worked for a company called Partners in Care. And I thought, Partners in Care? I don't want to be a partner in care. I'm a partner that cares. So that's how the name came about.
Okay.
So I kind of piggyback on that whole partner that cares thing. And I wanted to be a network of people, not just to be a silo. I wanted it to be a network of people who shared a similar interest because, again, Partners at Care International, we help our community, but they're arms of it that we try to facilitate. So we came together with some persons who had like mind, which now make up the board because they too were doing their own little bits and pieces in their sphere of influence, and therefore we came together, formed the board, and under the umbrella of Partners at Care International, we registered the charity.
And what year was that?
That was in 2014.
2014. Okay.
Mhm.
So now you have Partners That Care International, formally formed as an organization. So, what are some of the things, programs that you focus on? Where's your space that you're working in? And tell us about some of the things that you're doing.
Sure. What we did when we first started, we worked with the Ministry of Education here in Barbados because, again, my love is for the arts. Um, I've been a dancer for many, many, many years, and but I've always known of dance from a ministry perspective, even when I stopped dancing from a secular perspective. Dance as a ministry fixes you, the individual, first before you can minister to others. And therefore, I always felt like this is a place where others need to know how to be able to fix themselves using these arts, using music, using theater. How can you get the help from a mental perspective, from a holistic and emotional, a spiritual perspective? How can you get that help using the arts? So I approached the Ministry of Education, and we did 3 years biannually. We did a schools music festival. They liked the idea. We ran and went down the road with it, and we had a biannual competition within the schools, the secondary schools, and the primary schools. What Partners at Care did was the developmental workshop, and the ministry took care of all the music parts, all the other logistics of that event. So we would have that event biannually. We did it 3 cycles. And then also on the back of that, we did our first food hamper distribution. Now, like I would have mentioned to you earlier, my husband and I would have done food hampers on a one off. So we would have maybe given away 2 or 3 food hampers on occasions. But this was a situation now where we were going to make it even bigger, and try to reach more people. So, because of my contacts, having done um, guidance and counseling, I knew a lot of the guidance counselors in school because we would have gone to school together. So, I contacted some of them and asked them to look for students within their schools who would have been at the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, and would need the help most because, you know, anybody at this point in life could do with a hamper. We don't mind getting free food, right? But I wanted to target those who were at the bottom of the bottom, right? Those who were finding it really, really challenging to provide for their children during the long break of the summer. So in 2015, that's what we did. We started our first Summer Fiesta as a charity, a collective body. And we reached out at the time, it was to 7 schools, 7 secondary schools. And we did provide them with hampers for 2 months. The families that were selected, they get a hamper in July and then they get another one in August.
So can you explain to our listeners what a hamper is for those who may not know?
Oh, sure. A hamper is a basket of goodies, the essentials, the basic stuff. So, your rice, your sugar, your pasta, your flour, those items that will make the basics for you to be able to have a meal for those 2 months. So, we
So
did that. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess my question out of that then is food insecurity a challenge in Barbados? Well, I mean, why did you focus on this? Is that a big challenge for many people in Barbados?
Oh, definitely. And like I said, we would have asked the guidance counselors to select students who their parents, guidance counselors working with the students in the school will know the parents who are struggling. And we wanted to target those parents. Um, Food insecurity is definitely a big issue here. And it's gotten even worse since COVID with the amount of layoffs that we've had and the amount of single parent families that we have here on the island. So we wanted to be able to meet the government halfway because the subsidy is provided for a lot of the students during the times that they're at school. So the students will get meals at school. But when they're not at school, then there's a challenge where parents are struggling to provide for their kids during the summer break. So that's because that subsidy is not available anymore. And so we thought, yeah, let's try to help in this way.
So where would
Um,
where your donors coming from? Where you getting the food, the money from? Is it donated by the grocery stores or from private
well,
assistance or government assistance?
we didn't get government assistance, but we targeted corporate Barbados and some of the local funders here, like the Sandy Lane Charitable Trust, the Maria Holder um, Trust. We reached out to charities like that as well on the island, and they were able to help us when we initially started the process. We also did a lot of out of pocket because, again, like I said, we were doing it before we got to this stage. So we know that as a charity, as a board, we will put aside a little bit here, a little bit there to ensure that we had what we needed um, to help with providing for more families. There are schools that are reaching out because we've been doing this since, like I said, 2015, and we are now gearing up for one this coming summer. But there are schools that are not on our list. We're now up to 15 schools, and there are schools that are not on our list. We've got 15 schools, and also children who are in residential care, even if though it may be temporary or in foster care. So we also help the child care board here in Barbados with providing hampers for some of those students who return to their homes.
Okay. So that one of your programs then is the food insecurity and hampers in the summer, helping kids go back to school. What other programs do you run?
Okay, so we would have had the summer fiesta that we did for season. We
And
had
that was
the
dance,
not the summer
right?
fiesta, no, the music festival that we did for a season. That was music.
Okay.
And then we had the summer fiesta, which is the food distribution. But then in 2018, we started a program called Make Music Make a Difference. It's 3MD. This is where we use music as a catalyst for behavior change. Now, this was birthed out of the need that we saw emerging with the incurring and continuing violence among adolescent youth within secondary schools.
So before
So
you
there
go
was
on,
a
you said it's called the 3MD.
correct.
What does that mean again? Say that again.
Make music make a difference.
Okay, make
Three
music make a difference.
three
Okay, yeah.
M's and a D.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
That
go
was not
ahead.
that was
Tell us
that was
about
all
it.
that was all God. So so we We started that program where we selected students. All we wanted these students to have was an interest. You did not have to be able to play an instrument. You did not have to be, in a position where you had the experience. All we needed for you to do is to have an interest and be willing to learn. And there were students who came when we started the pilot in 2018. We had 20 students. And those students came through the program, did 2 years. So it's a 2 year scholarship program for the student. They don't have to provide anything. They don't have to come with an instrument. They don't have to come with transportation unless the parent insists. And we also provide them with a snack after school because, again, kids come and they would not, some of them did not have something to eat during the course of the day while they're at school. So we provide them with something light to eat when they get to us. We provide transportation, so we pick them up from school, bring them to the facility, and then provide transportation to take them directly to their homes. Because again, we're dealing with at-risk and vulnerable youth. So let me stick that in there. With at-risk and vulnerable youth, getting to us would be a challenge because it's extra bus fare that parents will have to look for. It's also students who may be distracted on the way to the facility and may get into other things before they get to us. So to avoid all of that and to ensure that they maximize the 2 hours that they had with us, we picked them up from school and we took them home in the evening. So we started that program.
That's a heavy commitment.
it is it is a heavy commitment, but again, God, this is His idea. I'm just the catalyst for where it's going. I really could not have come up with this on my own. I believe that God placing it on my heart and me having conversations, with persons who shared a similar thought or have a similar belief in that music can transform your life, whether it is in a negative way or in a positive way, right? Whether the music is negative or whether the music is positive, it can impact on your psyche. And we wanted to be able to use the playing of music to help children to settle, to help them to be able to reevaluate their actions, their emotions. Along with that, we didn't just do the music because it's a music program, yes, but it's more of a behavior change program. So
Okay.
we focus, yes, on the music, but the behavior is what we're really trying to get to.
So tell us a little bit more about how you do that. How so you have the children come in, and what ages are these children? What age group?
Well, the age group is 13 to 16. We do have one or two who, come in and a little younger or a little older, and they're with us for 2 years,
Yeah, two
right? And
years.
what we do, we take them through the process of understanding themselves. We do self regulation. How do I regulate my emotions? So, first, I have to identify what emotions I have. So, we go through that process of being able to identify your emotions. Why are you having this feeling? Why are you not having this feeling? And once you're able to regulate your emotion, you now have to learn to regulate that emotion in relation to somebody else because you don't live in a silo. So we go through things like that. We go through behavior change interventions.
Hmm.
Why would you react in a particular way? Do you even understand why you react in a particular way? We did things like personality profiling, understanding your own personality, the strengths and weaknesses of your personality, and then how that can rub on the strength or weaknesses of another person's personality. And a lot of the dynamics that we do in the soft classes that we like to call them, then come out in the band sessions when they're going to a band because Bob next to you is supposed to be playing keys, but he's not focused, and you are. And you're getting agitated because Bob would not focus. What would you have learned in those soft skill sessions now that you can implement in the band session to help
Okay.
you to be a little bit more tolerant of Bob or to pull Bob one side and pull him along, encourage him? And it's a phenomenon to watch where you
Okay.
have kids who would not care about each other coming from differing schools And then they work, and they, as a family, they work to encourage each other. They work to just see themselves get better in this space. They let down their guards. They are so comfortable with the tutors and the facilitators. It's just an amazing thing to watch.
That's great. That's a great approach. Now, if these children were not in this program, what likely would they be doing, or where would their life's direction be headed?
On a different trajectory, that's for sure. Um, some of them, some of the kids who came through the program, we would have experienced students who are now at university, students who settled in their academics at secondary school. You got reports back from the schools, from some of the teachers, where students were settling and paying more attention to their work. Yes, there were some who were being sent home and stuff like that. That stopped. So things like that did not happen anymore. There were students who took pride in coming and looking after the instrument that has been assigned to them. There are students who would talk back to parents or just be agitated in the home space, who are no longer doing this, who parents are commented, I am not sure what it is that y'all are doing up there, but whatever it is, keep doing it. Because you could see the noticeable changes in students. Now, that comes over time.
Hmm.
And again, it is not a one strategy or a one stop fix all, but we saw changes. We saw small changes from a child making the decision to say, okay, you know what? When I come up the stairs or when I come to this facility, I'm usually angry. I'm usually carrying the world on my shoulders. But when I come, in as much as I'm angry, I'm still going to sit in the session and listen and participate. So you'd hear comments coming from them like, ma'am, I'm real tired this evening. I do not want to be here. I'm not coming back. And then the next week they're here and they're saying, oh, so I thought you weren't coming back. So it's an interesting, like I said, it's an interesting phenomenon. The children that we get at the beginning of this program are unidentifiable at the end. It's not the same child
A
for
transformational
all of
change.
them.
A
It's
transformation.
transformational.
Yeah.
And that is something for me that I think my team and I, we understand that that's not something that you can pay us for, but it is a welcome um, engagement. It's something that is so fulfilling for all of us that we are all willing to put our hands to the plow.
Wow, that's great. Now, is this a religious organization that I mean, do you require the children to come from churches or to go to church or that, or are you open to any child who's willing to participate?
We are open to any child who's willing to participate. They're selected by their schools, whether it be the music teacher, the guidance counselors, year heads, principal. We have principals knocking down our doors. They're only supposed to select 4 students, and they're knocking, can you give me another space? Can you give me another space? We don't have the space to give you another space, but um, so we are a Christian organization because God is at the helm of our organization. He is the foundation of this organization. So we pray over the children. We when I say pray, we come together as a admin team, as a management team. We come together. We pray for those children day in and day out. We also encourage them to, if there are some of them who go to church, because some of them, as you know, Barbados is an island where children still do go to church. So some of them go to church, some of them are involved in activities at their churches. They're not necessarily building their relationship with the Lord, but they are involved in activities at their churches. And so we help to point them in that direction as well. We also like to help them with their, in terms of when we have selection, for example, you're selecting songs. And I had one of our past students said to me, just, in passing, he said, ma'am, it is really interesting that we played all these songs and we've been engaging these songs, but see, gospel music is something else. It's really something else. It really changes you.
Mm,
And that was interesting for me to know because he's playing with bands outside of the program. He's just doing his thing musically. He just finished his associate degree at the Barbados Community College, and he's doing things, he's going places. So
that's
he's
great.
seeing himself in spaces and doing things that if he had not settled, he says, I would not be here if I
Mm,
had not settled down.
that's good to have those testimonies. Are there other
Yeah,
programs that you also run, or these two keep you busy and at full capacity?
correct. we are we are at full throttle right now. There are things that I would like for us to get into because again, music, we provide that experience for these children. It's an experience that under normal circumstances, a lot of these kids would not experience. They would not have had the experience of playing an instrument or going anywhere to get a lesson by some of the top musicians in Barbados. That would not happen for them. And we're glad to be able to provide that for them at no cost to them. Because again, if these students had to pay to go to these classes, they would probably not go, right?
Mhm.
So there are other things that we would like to get into, but we want to focus more on this and continue to build this to the point where it becomes sustainable on its own without having to have, well, we may still need funding because we are a charity. We don't make money.
So
As long as
typically,
we
what
also,
kind of costs is involved in running a program like this? Do you have like the obviously I am assuming the food insecurity and the hampers is one separate program, and then the music and arts is a separate program funded separately and run separately. So how do you keep this going?
well, we have to source funding. So for our hamper distribution, for example, outside of what we get in kind, it's like $30,000 Barbados to do that for 2 months for the amount of families that we try to cover, the amount of schools that we try to cover. And again, we are barely scraping the bucket when we talk about how many schools we reach. We're reaching 15 out of 20 somebody schools. And this is just secondary schools. It's not even primary schools.
But 15
Um,
schools, but how many people does that actually represent that you're helping?
so we get two families from those 15 schools,
So 30 families.
right? And then we also have the families that come from the child care board, where we will get
Okay.
probably 11 or so families. And then there's um, early, the Sunrise Early Education Development Center. We also assist them. This is children who may be autistic, or so we help those students as well, those parents who have autistic children who are in that program. We also help them with hampers as well. So
And that's about how many families
that's last hamper distribution. We did 77 families.
total?
Yes.
77 families total. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's every year.
Yes, that's every year.
Okay. And you can do that
And
with that $30,000 budget.
yes, we can do that with that $30,000 budget. Again, it's the essentials. And
So
mind you, each family gets a hamper um, for 2 months
for
because
two
it's
months.
July and
Okay.
August. Well, so it's not 77 families, it's 77 hamper distributions.
77 hampers. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Or for the 2 months.
yes, for the two
Yeah.
months.
So then, and the music program, that's a separate thing
Yes,
that's
that is
targeting
separately.
20 children, right?
Well, that was the pilot program. We now have 40 students enrolled for the last two cohorts. We
Okay.
had in 2022 to 2024, we had 40 students, and 33 of those students completed the program.
Yeah. What happened to
So,
the others?
well, they dropped out
They,
for
for different reasons.
reasons. Yeah, for different reasons.
Okay. And how much does that program cost you to run?
Well, it can go into the hundred thousands, 200,000 um, a year, and it's a 2-year program.
Yeah. Does that include instruments and all of that?
Yes, because again, well, we have our catchment of instruments now. But what we're working on now is being able to, for example, with the guitars. Students come, and because they don't have a guitar at home, it's hard for them to practice at home.
Hmm.
So we have to loan them the guitar. But remember, if you come on Tuesdays, you take the guitar, the guy that's coming on Monday, what is he going to use?
Yeah, yeah. Plus, what condition
So,
is it coming back in? Yeah.
yeah. So
Hmm.
the maintenance is high, as you would imagine. But still, I mean, it's high initially until they learn to care for them, until they
Hmm.
learn to have a measure of respect for their instrument,
Okay.
right? And then there are instruments that cost more than others. So, for example, to buy a steel pan, we have to buy a steel pan from Trinidad, and a steel pan is going to cost us 1,500 US. That's just the pan. We also still have to get it here.
Hmm.
So we have to ship it. We don't make instruments here in Barbados, so we have to ship them from the US or ship them from Trinidad. And that is cost that is incurred. But our biggest cost, more so than the instruments itself, is our transportation costs
Okay.
because we have to outsource the drivers. We don't have a vehicle. We have to outsource the drivers. And a lot of the times, they're taxi drivers who we're taking off of a route or from taking a regular job that they may have maybe at the airport or whatever. And they don't charge us the fee that would
Hmm.
be charged to take each child to their respective homes.
Wow.
So, but it is still high, right? We have to consider the rise and fall of diesel and the fact that we have drivers that are going as far as we're located in Wildy, and we have drivers going as far as St. Lucie to drop off students on evening, or coming from as far as St. Peter from College and Parish School to Wildy on evenings. And
So,
then
what other
there's
things do you
also
want to
the
share?
taking them to the south end of the island as well. So we have two sets of transportation, one going to the north and then one going to the south.
The distances that Clarine refers to are about 13 miles in either direction from the Partners That Care headquarters. Okay, yeah. So, what other things do you want to share?
The thing that I want the audience that is listening to understand that a lot of times we think that things are bigger than us and they can't be done. I used to think that this program was, I still think that it is actually. It was a huge undertaking, but I know that because God is in it, its success is built on Him. Yes, it's built on what we do, and we have to report on the successes and the challenges and how we overcome the challenges. But at the end of the day, this is God ordained. I believe that within my heart because I could not have come up with this. I could not have come up with every intricate part of this program where the transportation is concerned, where kids come and they're not focused. And the reason why they're not focused is because they haven't eaten. And then to say, oh yeah, you know what? Let me find a way that we can give them a snack on evenings when they get here or after they've been here. So you get kids who get their snack before they do anything with their tutors, or sometimes they get it after. But I would not have known these things if it wasn't, God, prompting me that this could be the issue. A lot of the times we're met with energy that the children come with because of the things they would have gone through during the course of the day at school, because it's an after school program. So they're coming with all that baggage from what would have transpired at school, whether it was interaction with teachers at school or whether it was interaction with another student. They're coming with a lot of baggage. This has nothing to do with the home environment. So this is just coming from school, right? And we would not have been able to navigate a lot of these things had it not been God on our side to help us, to equip us, to help us to strategize on how to reach these children, how to break down some of the walls. Because these children are dealing with a lot of issues, right? From abandonment, from some of them homelessness, right? There's one issue after the other. And as children, they're not getting to be children. And then I have to go to school and focus. We had a student in our pilot program who was looking after five younger siblings, had to get up, get them ready for school, take them to school before she went off to school. And that was becoming too much of a burden for her. Not that her parent wasn't trying to help, but the parent had to go off to work,
Hmm.
and sometimes early, early in the morning. So she was left as a caregiver for the other siblings. So again, it seems sometimes like it is really bigger than we are, but prayer, but God.
Hmm.
And therefore I ride on that consistently. Sometimes I write my proposals and my budget seem like I don't know how people are going to give to this. I don't know where this money is going to be coming from. And then God shows up.
Hmm.
So don't put your dreams aside. Don't lay them down. Trust God. Have faith that He can do more than you think He can do. If it's too big for you to handle, then it is a God. It's a God project. It's a God assignment.
Yeah, if you can do it yourself, you don't need any help. You don't need
I'm
God's
telling you,
help.
you don't need God.
So, I mean, this has been very interesting discussion, and people may be wondering, wow, how do we help and how do we get involved? And there's a number of ways I want to transition to now, right now. But Partners That Care has a website, their own website, that you can look them up on partnersthatcareinternational.org, partnersthatcareinternational.org, and you can give to the organization through that website. If you're in the United States or outside of the Caribbean, my wife and I, has a nonprofit called Shangi Global that we have set up and that will be able to assist this organization. And that website is SHONGI global.org, SHONGI.org. And you can donate there, and we can get that to the organization as well if you choose. And that's a 501c3 organization registered in the United States. So your contribution could be tax deductible if you want them to be tax deductible. Just We just wanted to let you know that there's a relationship there, and we wanted to get this word out to you that this organization, Partners That Care International, is doing phenomenal work in Barbados, helping these young people, these families, in ways that many of them would not necessarily be able to get. And sometimes we in the United States or in Europe, we we have certain ways of doing things, and but they don't always translate when you get into other countries. So we'll try to help from this side and try to get the funds to them, but also realizing that even on an island nation like Barbados, which is not very big, there are big issues and big challenges that need to be addressed. And every child we can help, wherever they are in the world, is a child whose potential we can get to see become what God created them to be, and let their future not be determined by the circumstances in which they find themselves, and help them to understand that where they are now does not necessarily mean that's where they're going to be in the future, but we can help them build a brighter future. So, Clarine, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for Partners That Care. Thank you for persisting and working through all the things to make something like this work. We will do whatever we can to help you. And if you're out there in the Caribbean, you can give to Partners That Care International.org. And if you're in the United States or Europe or other places outside the Caribbean, you can give to shangiglobal.org and just designate it for Partners That Care International, and we will make sure it gets there. Also, you can write us at above the noise 24, above the noise 24 at gmail.com, and we can get a message and we can get the email to Clarine. Clarine, I don't know if you want to share your email or if you would prefer it to come from us, but that's up to you.
Yeah, my email address is ccave, and it's a long thing, at Partners That Care International. So it's ccave at partnersthatcareinternational.org.
Well, thank you. Any closing remarks?
We really appreciate any assistance that we can get. And for those who may want to give, they don't necessarily have to give financially, but they can give in their prayers, they can give in kind. If you have an instrument that you want to dust off and, you know, box it up and send it to us, whether you are here in the region or in the US, we would appreciate that a lot because we need to help our students as much as we can. So thank you very much for listening, and thanks too for having me.
You're welcome. My pleasure to have you.